Big fluff.
Hey everybody, I'm Joel Murphy.
And I'm Andy McIntyre.
And this is Silver Linings Playback, the podcast where we watch maligned movies and we find their silver linings.
And it is still Revenge of the Guest month. And I don't know who's getting punished worse, us or our guest, because we watched Waterworld and our guest is friend of the show, SLP Hall of Famer, Jonathan Davenport.
Hey, I'm back, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. And I can't believe you hadn't done this movie yet. I'm shocked.
That is
just put it on
surprising.
the list as a lark.
Yeah, no, it's genuinely surprising we haven't done this movie. Also, I just want to quickly say to everyone still listening to the audio version and not the video version, I have no idea how that opening was, but I hope it made some amount of sense.
If that's not a reason to watch the YouTube version, at least of the opening.
Yeah, for sure. It's the most iconic scene from Waterworld, for sure. And it's how it starts. So
yes, it is the opening scene of Waterworld where the mariner, played by the inimitable Kevin Costner, pees into half of a soda bottle and then processes it so he can get good drinking water.
And it's the most honest scene of the movie.
I think it sets a tone. I think for sure you watch that and then the rest of the movie happens and you're like, no, that was the correct opening scene for everything that will follow, for sure.
Because if there's a tone of this movie, it's absolutely absurd premises taken way too seriously.
Yeah,
that's the movie.
It is. Well, I don't know if you both knew this because I didn't know this until I started researching stuff for this episode. But it makes a lot of sense when you realize that the original script was meant to be a children's movie. And then at some point it got changed into this. And it got more serious and more adult oriented and action oriented. But apparently the original script was about a little kid and it was very silly. And I think you can see that's still the bones of a movie that then became very serious.
I have a conflicting report.
Oh, okay.
I hadn't heard that. So what I heard was that the Mad Max movies were doing well at the time. And Roger Corman wanted his version of a Mad Max thing. So a dude wrote a spec and it was too expensive. And so Corman's like, too rich for my blood. And then the guy rewrote it and reworked it over the course of several years. And then Universal bought it. That's what I heard.
That's all still accurate. That is all true. But apparently his version, the guy, it was Peter Rader was the name. And it is, you're absolutely right. It was Roger Corman commissioned him to do it. But apparently in the original screenplay, the mariner was a human and the chief defender of the atoll with an embarrassing secret that he enjoyed painting pictures of seahorses. And
I like that.
Helen had two of her own children along with the adopted Enola. And Deacon was called Neptune, a campy, silly villain who dressed up like King Trident and sat atop a throne of the Exxon Valdez. So it was meant to be like close. A Mad Max thing.
Yes,
but yeah,
I love it. I'm in.
What were they like? Mad Max is in a desert. What's the opposite of desert? Was that the idea?
Pure hydro.
Yeah. I also look
very difficult to come by.
We've already since we've name checked him. Let's give a shout out to the absolute king, Roger Corman, who absolute icon in the industry, who also was the only person seemingly who went, nope, I'm out. No, thank you. He got out
the
early.
Smartest of all of us.
He got out early and he got out completely. And that's why he worked as long as he did and made as many movies as he did.
So before we dive in, let me just ask you guys this. How long had it been since you've seen Waterworld, or is this somehow your first time viewing it?
No, I had definitely seen it before, but it's got to be over 20 years since I had seen it. Yeah.
Yeah. Like many movies that we've done recently on this podcast, I watched this movie originally the way it was intended, 20 minutes at a time on TBS over the course of 3 months.
That's perfect.
Yeah, no, for sure. Perfect. Like I had seen it. That's why I can't entirely be sure. I definitely saw it, not in the theater, but I saw it.
I did not see it in the theater. I know that.
Same.
But I saw
no
it.
One did.
I saw it on HBO, I want to say, because I remember seeing a version where we could see the, iconic Jeanne Tripplehorn butt double, in the movie. So I definitely saw that. But like, also, did they take out him peeing and drinking it did that make Cable?
No, I think that's in Cable. That has to be, because that's the iconic scene from this movie. I definitely remember.
Ever seen the beginning of a movie on Cable?
Yeah.
You turn to it in progress. No one's ever seen it. There's no way of verifying.
But it had to have been, because I remember seeing that scene. I remember forgetting that it was the beginning of the movie because no one ever has seen this movie from the start because it's only been on a Cable. But I know I've seen it.
It's also, is weird that this is a movie that its most iconic line is from the trailer and not actually in the movie, which is the whole dry land is a myth delivered, really. Like, it's a myth. Like, that's not actually said that way in this movie.
No. But I know that I do this a lot on this show. And I'm sorry to do it, but I have to say it. I loved this movie. I loved it from beginning to end. I had a great time. I had genuine laughs. I understand its maligned status. I'm just going in almost completely cold, remembering nothing except that it was vaguely brown. I know there was piss,
which is weird in a Waterworld movie.
Yeah.
A lot of brown.
Yeah. Like in general, what was your just general feeling watching this?
Oh, I was trying to let Andy go first.
Me go? Oh, no,
yeah,
I'll say. I'd say my take on this was a little harsher.
Okay.
This movie, I think the thing that bugged me the most is just how seriously this movie took itself. That if this movie had a sense of fun, which I don't think it did, I think I would have enjoyed it a lot more. If it just steered into how absurd everything about the movie is, instead of taking it like way too seriously, like over seriously. And it shouldn't have been like the other extreme where it was all winky and like, look how dumb this is. The smokers are the bad guys. Like it should have aimed more for that sweet spot where like, okay, we know this movie's ridiculous. Almost like Fury Road. Because like Fury Road knew how crazy a movie it was and reveled in like the absurdity and the over the topness of it. And this movie tried to take itself seriously, and I have to blame Costner for that.
I mean, it does seem like everything I read seems to imply that and it's not necessarily that this is Kevin Costner's fault per se, but once they got Kevin Costner, 1995 Kevin Costner agreed to do this movie.
Costner.
It seemed like that's when everyone on a studio level lost their minds and started throwing money at this and rewriting it and really changing what they thought it could be. But to answer your question, I'm probably closer to Andy. I can't say that I loved watching this, but I also think my wife, who was kind of in and out when I was watching it, nailed it immediately in like a 5-minute stretch when she watched it, which is, if you look at it from a production value, like kind of the way everything's designed, the way all the ships and floating devices and things are built, it feels like it should be directed by Terry Gilliam. And I think that version would have been great if like someone like
although
that,
it wouldn't have been finished.
It would have taken forever, but
it would have come out yesterday.
But I think someone like that, you know, who could have done something truly weird, because I think that's it. It's a weird movie that's overly seriously made is definitely, I think, what you're getting at, Andy. And I think my
100%.
problem with it too. It's also, I believe this is the director of Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, right? That made this. And
Is the
apparently
Kevins teaming up again?
Well, and apparently they fought while making that movie, did not want to work together to make this movie, and then fought while making this movie. So
I heard they fought and had a falling out before this movie.
But that's what I'm saying.
They came back together.
Yeah, they
did it again for Prince of Thieves.
Yep. Yeah. They didn't want to work together because they had a falling out, and someone got them in a room together. They made up enough to agree to do this movie, and then it seemed like it went bad. Also, apparently Costner was going through a divorce while making this as well.
Yeah, he was in a dark place personally, and it bled into his profession. Kevin Reynolds also said that a lot of the movie was just ended up directed by Costner. And the quote was that, well, that's great because then Kevin gets to work with his favorite actor and his favorite director.
That's such a
Tell
good
me when
quote.
He's telling lies, folks.
It also, I'm happy for him too that, you know, even though this is obviously a post-apocalyptic kind of movie, that he still got to play, you know, a character that could technically be a baseball player since he's the Mariner. So he's still got, you know, his. If only there were. If there were cowboys, I think he would have checked all of his favorite boxes.
But yeah, shall we kind of go through the plot, I use in air quotes, of this movie?
I mean, are you going to do an epic voiceover to start us out?
In a water world. There it is.
There you go.
They literally referred to it as Waterworld in the movie. I was shocked.
That was wild.
Yeah, there's a
to me.
there's a titular line.
I was not prepared for that. Like, yeah, I would have bet money that no one called it Waterworld. Which does that even make any sense? Why would you call, you know, we don't call this like, you know, Dirt World.
We call it Earth.
Okay, fine, nerds.
We win.
Yeah, nerds.
Take a shot of pure hydro.
Yeah, but so I guess they say the polar ice caps have melted, though, you know, if Neil deGrasse Tyson is listening, I'll just get ahead of it and say that would not make the world as flooded as it is in this movie.
No, it would destroy the coastlines.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Joel and none of us would have homes, actually.
Yeah, we all live on coasts, so we'd be in trouble.
None of us, we are all within 100 miles of the coast.
That's true.
So yeah, none of us would have homes anymore. And that's the other thing, is that most of the icebergs are already floating, so their displacement has already taken place too.
If you're going to bring actual science into this conversation, everything is going to come to a screeching halt. That's not the spirit in which Waterworld was made.
No, 100%. 100%.
For fun and for swashbuckling adventures, for piss drinking, for map tattooing, and for fake eyeballing. That's what it's for.
Okay, also, yeah, to be fair, we set up the Waterworld part and not the rest. So yes, there is a little girl with a map on her back to dry land. Also, Kevin Costner is a fish man with gills.
That's right.
He can swim underwater. And Dennis Hopper is Dennis Hopper, but missing an eye. And he's leading the pirates who are trying to kidnap the little girl to get,
including Jack Black.
Do we know why the pirates want dry land? Like, is that
the same reason everybody wants dry land?
I didn't know if they had a plan. They just, because they seem like they're living their best lives.
I would assume to grow more tobacco.
Makes sense.
I don't know. I also like to think that this is a particular post-apocalypse from The Leftovers, and the people that were all white and smoked just evolved into the smokers, is the world I like to live in. That's my headcanon for this movie.
It's true. But again, if you're going to have a water world, right? Like, and we want to have bad guys that are like bikers, you know, you're going to put them on jet skis.
Oh yeah, it's great.
You know, their base is going to be a giant oil tanker. Like, it has to be. I'm telling you, I think they made a lot of correct decisions in this film.
I do love and am kind of surprised looking at it now that they got away with it being the Exxon Valdez. Like, I don't actually know how, unless Exxon was like, yes, this is good marketing for us. Do it.
We're still around. That's how well made the ships are.
Yeah. I think the best thing about this movie is coming out in 1995 is that the ship was their base was referred to as the D's, and there's no D's nuts jokes, and that was good and right.
Wasn't that nice?
It was
good.
You
could hear it rattling around in your head, and you're like, "Oh, please don't!" And then it never comes because it was a better time.
I did hear that to get on those jet skis, though, you had to call shotgun, or else someone else could. So
this movie, now, while I enjoyed it, I can't say it's a good movie. I just enjoyed it.
I think that's a fair assessment.
Right. I just had a good time. It's obviously kind of notorious and it's infamous for being a flop. And I think a lot of people were rooting for it to be a flop. But if all that hadn't been the case, if it hadn't been wildly over budget or whatever, how do you think it would have been received at the time? If you think about the movies that were out then.
I mean, I think it's fine. I think it's interesting. This movie, one of the main reasons I think this movie was so expensive is that they made it in 1994. Because if they made it a decade later, the CGI quality was enough that a lot of those shots get a lot cheaper.
Yes.
Well, right. I mean, that was a big problem that they had, was that to film this, they had to film it off the coast of Hawaii, and they had to get shots where you couldn't see land, obviously, because at the time you couldn't just, because to Andy's point, now you could just take land out of shots, but they had to get these shots where they were like, I think it was like 270 degrees of no land in a shot so they could film what they needed to film. But then everything was filmed on the ocean, which meant that's expensive and things move on the ocean. So they
the ocean moves, baby.
Yeah. So they get shots lined up and then they drift into the wrong position and then
there'd be a typhoon.
Yeah. Also, I was reading there weren't like bathrooms readily available there. Also, everyone involved
how did they
in
get
this
water
movie,
to drink?
I think the most amazing thing about this movie is that no one, including A-list talent, drowned because they all almost did. There's like a story of Kevin Costner almost drowning. There's a story of Jeanne Tripplehorn almost drowning. Like, everybody had a moment where, and maybe they did lose crew, and in 95 you could cover it up. But
oh my gosh.
Someone died making this movie. Someone
Reynolds
did.
died spiritually,
but
maybe.
But yeah, so the budget went way, kept ballooning just because of all of the stuff filmed on the water, and just a lot of things had to be made locally in Hawaii, and in Hawaii, God bless them, I think did price gouge them a bit, which as they should.
they did use all of the available steel in Hawaii.
Yeah,
that is a fact.
But I think
that's a fact.
Yeah.
Holy crap.
So they had to ship in steel from the mainland US, so that was astronomically expensive.
Oh no.
But yeah, I do think, to your point, it's an interesting thing, and it's funny. We also recently did Ishtar, which we had never done, and apparently this movie was called Fishtar in the press. But I think they both have a similar thing that you're kind of getting at, which is the press latched onto it while they were filming, and before the movies ever came out, they were known to be, these movies with huge budgets that were problems. And so that definitely colored, I think, how people went into them, because I think in both cases, I don't think either is a good movie, but I think people latched onto them and call them, remember them as some of the worst movies ever made because of the press surrounding them more than I think they actually warrant. And we've certainly, I was just going to say, we've certainly
notorious, infamous.
Yeah, but we've watched way worse movies
it's another way in which this movie was ahead of its time. Like, the crowd hating it before it came out, condemning it, not giving it a chance. That's just what we do now. But back then it was kind of novel.
Well, and I don't think like now the press doesn't get to be involved as much. They
don't need to be involved. We've taken over that role.
Right. We've taken over. So you don't have. And again, not only is the press not involved, but you can get away with secrecy. And that's a selling point that we filmed the movie under a fake name and no press was involved. And, we spent I'm glad we're finally away from this trend. But remember the trend for a while where they'd remake something and like Wrath of Khan, they did that, but then the character's not Khan, or like the character's not Blofeld, and then it turns out that they are in like the last act of the thing, and then everyone figured that out. But yes, all of the secrecy, the internet hates everything anyway, but also doesn't know anything, and it's all speculation. And so yeah, the entire calculation of making a movie is different than it was in '95. You needed the press to like your movie and to promote it.
Because the press were the tastemakers. There wasn't word of mouth before a movie was non-existent. So, to get hype, especially there's a lot more original IP being made into movies at that point in time compared to, the last 15 years or so. But, you had to get good press buzz in order to get a big budget movie made.
It's also, we should point out, in fairness to this movie broke even. It actually didn't, like, in a long enough timeline, it is profitable. It has actually...
This movie is profitable.
Yes. Yeah. Like, it made it, it hung around long enough and gained enough of a cult following that it is not in the red.
Great. Good. Because the sequel should obviously be. She was pregnant. That's the secret that we don't know, right? And that child was born with the gills. And he's raised on, Mount Everest or whatever. And he's like, I don't belong here. It feels wrong. Call of the sea. You're like, oh, do you not know about your father? He's like, tell me about my father. And then we could do a whole, it's already there. They laid all the water work for it ahead of time. So you're telling me it's a profitable movie. I'm telling you, let's make another.
Who do you get to play the villain? Who's the equivalent of Dennis Hopper now?
Dennis Hopper.
I don't think he's with us anymore. Andy died in the movie.
Dennis Hopper.
Just CG. You just want to...
Dennis Hopper.
I think he's done everything he needs in this film. I think
it's just Frank Booth scenes.
Just reuse it. Yeah.
Also, did they kill him in the movie? Kim Coates is still around. We could get Kim Coates to come back for the sequel.
Oh, yeah. Speaking of the Dennis Hopper character death, that was the biggest laugh in my house, maybe for the year, with the 3 jet skis came together and just combusted. Like there weren't any fragments, no pieces, no collision. I think before they even touched, it was just a ball of fire. It was phenomenally bad, and I really, truly loved it.
Well, also,
of my being.
the 3 jet skis colliding were great, but you also need to give props to the setup to that, which is the bungee jumping save that he does. That I think
so tacked on. That had to. Did you research anything? Did you find out that that was like, oh, we needed one more stunt to really tie it together? Was there anything about that?
I didn't see anything. But speaking of tie it together, I also love that they have not tied the end of his bungee cord to anything when he jumps, and it's a scramble to tie it up. Which again, don't need to measure. It's somehow the perfect length that he needs it to be, but he's falling to the water as she's also scrambling to tie a knot.
Possibly the only bungee cord in existence. Everything else was ropes and cables. They never established elasticity in this film, but it's fine.
Also, it made a boing sound effect, right? In my head it did, and I'm pretty sure that it did. For real. Like
if it didn't, it did now.
Never go back and check.
And the Ulysses cut better have a boing. A boing.
Boing. Like the boings in Rollerball.
Which also, I think we said that off the air before we started, but just if people know this or if they don't, it's worth sharing for the record that so we got this 2 hours and 15-minute cut of the movie. But when it started showing on TV, there was this longer 3-hour cut, and fans took the TV footage and edited it together in what they called the Ulysses cut, which then Universal released officially as a cut of the movie. So you can now watch that for real. And maybe that's part of why it became profitable. People really wanted that Ulysses cut. the 3 hour that I guess, did you guys have questions? Was there 45 minutes worth of things that you needed filled in about this movie?
I mean, I had one major question. Why? Just why?
Fair.
But I mean, like, and I heard that it does like give a little bit more background on the smokers and their deal. And
I would like to know their deal.
But I don't know what their deal is. Smoke them if you got them. That's their deal.
Yeah, I don't know. The only question I really had was how can I get more of this? So yes, that would have answered it. The extra 45 minutes would have been great for me. I have a question about the Mariner in general. How did he come across to you in this movie? Like, he's not the kind of hero you get now, certainly. Did you find that refreshing? Did you find it off-putting? Like, how did you feel about him as a character?
I think does this sum up? Hopefully this answers your question, but maybe because I think reveals my mindset. There's a scene, and in a isolated, I liked this scene where once Enola is kidnapped, and she's the henchmen have her. She gives a speech. This is classic action movie stuff of the Mariner's coming, and he's gonna save me, and he's gonna kill you all. And you have minutes to live because he's the greatest hero ever. And once and I loved it, but I watched it and went, why does she believe that? Like, what makes her think he would come get her?
See the Ulysses cut. It's all there. It's all there.
Because I did have that. He doesn't seem to like them. And I wasn't really ever convinced a turn happened, that even when she was kidnapped, I knew that he felt bad about it, but I wasn't convinced he was in a headspace to risk his life to save her. And when he's kind of, doing the cowboy.
I was saying, no, I think it's because he wanted to bang Helen.
Which, I mean, look, that happened once she got kidnapped. So maybe he's looking at it the wrong way.
No, when Jonathan talked about the bungee jumping scene being tacked on, I was like, well, you know what felt really tacked on? That love scene.
The love scene.
Well, especially it does happen literally seconds after Enola is kidnapped.
Yeah.
That's the time that it's going to happen. maybe, you know what? Maybe 20 minutes passes in the Ulysses cut. I haven't seen it. So maybe they spaced it out a little bit better.
Yeah. That was definitely, we have a Hollywood sex symbol in the lead. We got to get ladies in to see this movie. Let's have a scene.
I mean, I get why it happened. That didn't confuse me. Just the narrative reasons for it make no sense.
She thought they were going to die, and she wanted to feel something before the end.
It's like, I've always wanted to be banged by a fish man.
That movie won an Academy Award, or at least was nominated for one.
No, it did win. It won Best Picture.
No, you know what? Go. That is true. This movie was ahead of the time
again.
Yeah,
that's the theme of this film. It is ahead of its time in so many ways.
It's hopefully it's not as predictive as it could be.
Wait. I have this will change the way you watch Waterworld. Does the timeline work out? Can he be the descendant of that couple? The fish man and the woman from The Shape of Water.
Why not?
They had a kid, and the kid could breathe underwater and became Kevin Costner.
I mean, she 100% died at the end, but sure.
Did she, though? Or did she like 90% die at the end?
She was only mostly dead. Yeah, I think now, so that is my headcanon as well. But this
also, we don't know the genetics. Maybe he's pregnant. Maybe he's gonna have Kevin
like
Costner.
Seahorses.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that works so well.
Yeah,
because in the unofficial backstory, he did love to paint seahorses.
Mm-hmm.
Also, since we're in the Michael Shannon space anyway, let's make that the answer to who does the Dennis Hopper.
Oh my God, it is Michael Shannon.
It is Michael Shannon. Yeah,
it's Michael Shannon. Yeah, that's the right answer.
Yeah, we did that.
Yeah.
I don't know where
like the parson instead of the deacon. Is that how that we just keep it going? He's the parson.
Correct.
Yeah. But I don't know where else to put this. So can I just say this information now? This random non sequitur. I love so much that this movie was the only like video game tie-in to be released for the Nintendo Virtual Boy.
What?
Yes.
That's a real fact.
I didn't know there was a game of this. There was a game of this?
There was a game of this. It was released for the Virtual Boy, which I think is very funny because why not have
another colossal flop?
Yeah, you have the flop movie tied to the flop Nintendo system, but it was the only movie tie-in game that the Virtual Boy ever got. Was the Waterworld.
Yeah, I think there's also a PC game and maybe a Sega Genesis game for Waterworld.
Mm-hmm. But I just,
I mean, the 90s were the pinnacle of shitty movie tie-in games. I mean, that was LJN's whole deal.
Also, again, another like sort of notch in the cap of being ahead of its time in that it was, you know, way ahead of Oculus and like all of the now VR stuff we have. Waterworld was leading the charge in VR video games.
I'm telling you, Waterworld gets a bad rap.
Yep.
Yes.
And no one's arguing that. No one is disputing that Waterworld gets a bad rap. I think we may quibble over how deserved that bad rap is, but
so okay. Mariner brings the characters come aboard, the Jeanne Tripplehorn and Deb. And at some point he's like, we're throwing Deb overboard. Right. And they have this whole big squabble about it. Like, I feel like in a modern day movie, they might give that beat to whomever is the lead. Right. But at some point, he's just going to soften and fall in love with everybody like a lot sooner, or if at all. And I feel like the Mariner kind of never does. Like, I feel like maybe that's the Kevin Costner of it, because I know that, you know he is. He wants his characters to be very stoic and to live by a code, and they don't like people and they don't like anything. But I don't know, that kind of, it stood out to me. It was kind of, I didn't love it, but it was different than what we've been seeing for the past 10 years of, you know, the tough guy leading man. Like, Wolverine is supposed to be like a very hard-edged character, right? But he would never take an oar to someone under a canvas. He's just a grump. And I feel like the Mariner is more of a Wolverine than Wolverine is allowed to be.
Well, you know what? I'm glad we're finally getting into this, because I have been rewatching the X-Men cartoon that we all grew up with. I haven't started watching 97 yet, but I've been prepping for it. And I think it's time we finally discuss the fact that Wolverine is the actual heart of the X-Men and Cyclops is a monster who should be stopped. And that he's the only one who he's the only one who cares about Morph. He's always trying to save everyone. He is great and he loves Jeanne, and insanely that meme shot of him with the framed photo of Jeanne is in like episode 3 of the series, which is wild to me how early that happened. But no, I think Wolverine is a marshmallow. I don't think he's tough at all. I think he's just a grump, like you said, but I think he has a heart of gold. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think the Mariner's
looks like he could kill you, but he has a cinnamon roll.
No, I think the Mariner's closer to Cyclops, you know, the evil leader who would leave everyone to die.
Oh, big man. Finally, somebody big enough to step forward and poop all over Cyclops. Let me tell you something. Okay. Without Scott, that team falls apart. You can't have a team of Logans. That's not a team. That's just people running rogue, being ineffective. You need somebody to be the glue. Do you hate Leonardo too?
First of all,
you're a Raphael guy.
First of all,
don't even answer. I already know.
First of all, nobody runs rogue. She runs herself. Okay. And second of all, no, I actually love Leonardo. He's great. I don't like Raphael. Right. He actually bothers me. So do with that as you will.
I like cartoon Raphael, but all the movie versions are meh.
But you know what it is? I think Wolverine actually leaves, you know, and does his own thing, which he does all the time. But Raphael, he wants you to know that he left. You know, he makes a he makes a big deal about it.
Yeah, he leaves a note.
That's a good point.
He storms out. He puts his big trench coat and his hat on.
Leave a note. Yes.
But yes,
and you're not telling me that Storm could have been the glue that held X-Men together, that you needed Cyclops? F out of here with that noise.
I mean, she was for a while.
Also,
Exactly.
I mean, the problem started at the top, and let's talk about what a terrible leader Charles Xavier is. Doesn't tell them anything, leads them into danger constantly. No, it starts with the X-Men. I mean, all the blame falls to Professor X, who's put Cyclops in charge and set him up
I'm
to
gonna peace
fail.
out for a while to go bang a bird person.
Yeah, I'm absolutely going to go deal with some personal thing and not tell any of you where I went for a year. Figure it out. It'll be fine.
To the point that I'm declared dead in the media.
I thought you didn't watch the new one yet.
I haven't watched the new one. That's in the original one. In the original one,
yeah.
He's in this happening. Oh my gosh,
he's in the Savage Land with Magneto for like a year. Anyway, to go back to your point, absolutely 100%. There is no chance the studio would let a character be as surly as Kevin Costner is in this movie. That he would be softened, because it is the only scene that we get that humanizes him before the ending is when he does teach her to swim. That's the only scene that we get. And even then it feels a little tense.
Yeah.
But it feels kind of tense. And like Jeanne Tripplehorn seems convinced that something terrible is going to happen. She does not relax the whole time that he's got the kid in the water.
Yeah. My favorite bit is when, I don't remember the context, but they were out of water. Do you remember? They were like, it must have been on the airship toward the end. And he's the only one awake, and he grabs the pure hydro and he tries to take a sip. There's nothing in there, and he basically has like water droplets on his fingers. And he's like, well, I'll give it to the girl, and is like rubbing her lips in her sleep. And then Jeanne Tripplehorn wakes up and sees this and is like, aw. I was like, what?
Nope. That is not the reaction. Not at all.
No. He swishes his fingers around in her mouth while she's sleeping. He's a good father figure.
Also, when's the last time he washed those hands? Is it ever?
I feel like
they get wet pretty regularly.
That's the thing. He's not strictly human. Like, he might have self-cleansing moistures.
Yeah, you never see a fish get dirty.
Exactly. There's no such thing as a dirty fish.
I'm self-cleansing moistures.
Moistures. Yes, correct. That's just good science.
You should be writing copy for Geology or whatever lifestyle brand. Self-cleansing moistures. It's real dumb that the only map to dry land is a tattoo on a child. I'm just going to say it.
It doesn't seem like a great plan. Also, I mean, the kid's going to have growth spurts. It's really going to distort that map. You don't want to tattoo a kid. Also, they have flying machines. No one just accidentally found dry land at some point. It didn't seem that far. It didn't seem like, they didn't travel very long to find dry land.
Well, and considering if you want to make some accuracy for this movie, a significant portion happens over the city of Denver, and then a minute later they're in the Himalayas.
We
just
don't
like in real life.
How long it was. There was enough for the water to run out. But remember the moistures.
That's true. In the Ulysses cut, they probably show the ordeal
in real time. It's very long.
That's why it's so long. It's just 40.
Most of the runtime is at the end.
Right. It's the exact movie we saw, and then they just have to travel.
A real-time journey from Denver to Nepal.
That's right.
And the Mariner doesn't talk. He's very stoic.
Dead silence.
Yeah.
Yes.
Also,
you're right though. The map on the back is kind of, I feel like that's probably the one thing that remained from the original Corman version, I would think, right? Like that wasn't touched. Because that feels very much like a Land Before Time move.
Now I'm thinking about it though too. So the Mariner traveled for so long just to be like, I'm not staying here. Like,
all right, I'm out.
That's true. He wanted to see it through though. This was his found family.
Fair enough. Yeah. He wanted to make sure they got there. I get it. But also, I do think that the movie almost kind of hinted at this and had it. I think instead of a map, if she seemed to have visions of dry land, and she said, I'm home when she got there. If she just in her head new things about where dry land was, and she was the map instead of an actual map on her.
I like that.
Yeah, have her be the map.
And the same thing, like a movie, a Waterworld, if you will, where everybody is a seafaring culture. You're going to tell me that they forgot about latitude and longitude? Come on.
Pardon me for a moment. For some reason, my music just started.
I'm glad we're on to Andy's weekly latitude and longitude rant. It's every movie. He's like, they're going to forget about latitude and longitude. It's
come on. Basic orienteering here. Let's get our shit together.
Okay, what do you find less believable? That or the fact that the little girl can't swim in a water world? That she's not been taught to swim?
That's
the swimming thing.
Yeah.
Speaking of the girl, question. You brought up the thing where she's like, I'm home. Is that meant to be literal? Like so like this is, I guess, where she's from. But were those supposed to be her parents?
You know what's funny? I didn't even think of that, but like she was born on dry land and then somehow ended up very far away from it with a map to get her back, I guess.
I don't know.
Yeah, I didn't think about it until you just said it. There was so much of the movie that still happened once they got to dry land where I was like, oh, they're on dry land. The credits are going to roll.
It did keep going.
No, we're not. And this isn't the Ulysses cut. We're still on dry land.
Spend just 4 minutes of them walking around. All right.
Feeling during this movie too, where I'm watching it and I kept having this vibe that you get where you're like, oh, they ripped that off from whatever, and they ripped that off from this movie, and that's lifted from this movie, before you realize, wait, opposite. Like all these references that I'm pulling up are not from this movie. Like the whole time they're on the ship, I'm like, this is so Moana. And it's like, oh, it's not.
Right.
With the grumpy dude throwing the girl overboard and like, the whole thing and them encountering stuff and him leaning the boat over and like all that stuff. It was like, wow, that's kind of crazy because I forgot this movie even existed. And then it turns into Disney's Tarzan when they get on the island with all the netting and the treehouse and the two corpses. And I was expecting like a cougar or whatever to jump down and they have to chase it around. Didn't happen because that was from another movie. It was from later. It was a different time, movie.
I guess what we're learning is that all Disney animators watched this and were heavily influenced by it.
Ahead of its time.
Yeah. I mean, that's the Moana thing is interesting. Like that's pretty convincing.
I'm in.
I do wish they were not firing. Were they firing bullets? Was there ever a shot where we saw like, oh, this isn't bullets. This is some kind of renewable resource.
No, I think it was bullets because didn't they dump the bullets into the chain gun? Or we saw what it was, but I thought they were bullets where he was like, reload, boys.
Yeah. What a colossal waste of metal in this water world.
Well, also a lot of dry gunpowder in this water world. Where is that all coming from?
Like when they had
oil.
When they had the water cannons, like it looked dumb, but I thought that's what would happen. Like, you jam a pipe in and you've got some kind of pump system and like, yeah, it's like crowd control, but that makes sense. But so many bullets.
Also, sorry, I'm really not trying to be pedantic with this movie, but this just occurred to me. It still rains, right? There's not a single rain catcher to get drinkable water anywhere. Like nobody just gets water that falls from the sky.
Well, no, that's the thing. It stopped raining because it's just a water world.
Okay. So it doesn't rain anymore in this future. Nope. Okay. All right. I mean, it didn't during the movie, so I can't.
Yeah. Was there a rain scene? I submit there was not.
To me, this movie is such a crazy contradiction. Like there's so many little things in it. Like some parts of it, in my opinion, are like pretty imaginative and pretty not exactly well thought out, like world building necessarily, but like they put some thought into a lot of it. It was like, they're building a water world from the ground up, it was kind of neat. And then there are other little things that felt like no thought. Okay, so you remember when the machine gun guy is like blasting away, and the Mariner's like, I'm going to take 20 minutes to rotate the machine gun toward the smokers. And like, it took so long. It was going for so long, pivoting the machine gun. And then at some point, I remember turning to my wife and going like, why is that guy still shooting? And then we're like, oh, he must be dead. Like he died, he got shot or something, and his fingers are contracted around the things. And that's not the case at all. He just continues firing. He shoots up his boss. The plane explodes. And then 20 minutes later, he's like, whoa, what'd I do? So it's so weird that you could have a movie where I don't know. There's just so many little details of the world that they're like, oh, in a water world, you wouldn't have this. You'd have this. Meanwhile, you've got machine gunners that never stop to look around.
No, they put a ton of effort in like the production design to make parts of it look really lived in and seem like, well, all right. So they did a lot of, if this is true, what else is true?
Yeah.
But then also had other scenes of just utter nonsense.
It's true.
All right. Well, I mean, we've kind of been going back and forth with silver linings, but do we officially want to put the maligning behind us and just focus on the positive for the rest of the show? Are we ready for that?
Oh, gladly. I have almost nothing bad to say about this movie.
We've noticed. No, I like. There was a lot of care put into this movie, and it does show. Like, I was unsurprised that this was the most expensive movie made to its time. Like, and like they made it look good. Like, it looks good. It's well made. You know, from a production design standpoint,
it does look good.
Yeah, do we say that for the record? Do we enter that into the podcast that up until Titanic was made, this was the most expensive movie ever made? Which, again, Molly pointed out too, wild that then they gave Cameron the money to make another water-based movie like after this.
It's true,
but,
yeah.
It's Jim Cameron. He can do what he wants.
What is now the most expensive movie? Is it still Titanic, or is it one of the Avatars? Maybe.
The Avatars have got to be up there. I would bet if you count all three Lord of the Rings as one production, that's got to be close.
Also, I mean, they spend a lot more money now, so it's possible that it's a Marvel movie like that.
Yeah, the average is way higher. Like the average for those blockbuster movies is substantially higher than it was.
Yeah, good point.
Back then.
It was tonally uneven, of course, but I did appreciate that they took some time to put some jokes in the movie.
Do you know what got the biggest laugh from me in the movie? Was
the bungee.
Okay, so it actually probably was the bungee, but I think the second biggest laugh from me was when Kevin Costner shows up on the Valdez, the D's, and he has his dynamite stick or whatever it is, and he drops it down. And to think, there's one shot of that one guy who's so ready to die and just says, thank God.
Thank God. Yeah, no, that was great. That was phenomenal.
That got the most sincere, biggest laugh from me. Like, I loved that so much.
That was
so dark.
Great gag.
So dark.
Really good.
This guy was just waiting for the sweet release of death.
Yes. And I know it's kind of a low-hanging fruit joke, but I didn't mind the womp womp shot of the two girls with both their haircut.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a
crossing
good
him too many times. You know, it was like, it's a good gag.
Yeah. Also, real quick update. Star Wars The Force Awakens cost $447 million and is currently the most expensive movie ever made.
No. Really?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's shocking to me. That's shocking. Like,
yeah, that's that. I mean, it isn't, but it also is.
That's crazy. That costs more than Avatar.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
they
because
invented technology for Avatar.
Okay,
That's
but
crazy.
they also, like, I think 247 million of those dollars went to getting Harrison Ford to do it.
No one likes this joke. I'm going to tell it anyway. After Harrison Ford is dead, after Solo is dead, spoilers, and then he comes back in, I think the second one, right? The whatever one.
The third one.
It's the last one.
Yeah, he comes.
The last one where he shows up.
Rise of Skywalker.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes. I call that a forced ghost. Is anyone on board with me?
Forced ghost. I like
Yes.
it. No, I'm here
Thank
for
you.
it.
Okay.
I'm 100%.
Finally, somebody appreciates
We've
this.
made countless references to. We refer to just the idea of someone basically doing a begrudging cameo for a dump truck full of cash as Fording.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
that's good.
It's I and I've said before too. We've talked about before. Like I would watch an entire documentary about the 45 minutes he was on set for Rise of Skywalker,
a real-time documentary
where he refused to change his clothes, read off of cue cards, and was in his car before they checked the gate. Like 100%, because he's not dressed like Han Solo. He does not care. Like, because you say what you will, but Force Awakens, he gave a real performance. He gave it his all.
Yeah,
but he does not care about Rise of Skywalker. He does not want to be there.
That's because he was finally he's the guy in the guts of the D's. Like, and they were like, "Hey, we're going to make a movie, and your character's going to die." And he's like, "Oh, thank God. I'll do it." You know, finally, I won't have to come back ever again. They can stop asking. No more questions at cons. No more. When's Solo coming back on the streets? Like, he went through, and I feel like he went in and like tied the knot on all of his famous characters, like within the course of like 2 years, just with Blade Runner and Indy and Star Wars, and thought he was done. And then they brought him back. Like, you can't blame him.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love him for it. It's the funniest thing.
That was our silver lining of the Rise of Skywalker, was that notion.
It's just that scene. It's so good. No, I love that man so much. And I love how much he hates Star Wars, which is so funny to me. But yeah, the guy that blows up, absolutely perfect joke. And there is other funny stuff. And again, I think the production design, we talked about it, but there's just some amazing crew that worked on this movie. And
the set design and the production design is phenomenal.
Yeah.
And to do that on water and
Crazy.
like the costume design all makes sense. And yeah, no, it's I wish the movie was better to show off their hard work.
I agree. Now, I will say, I think, Andy, I think you mentioned earlier in the show that you wished, or maybe Joel did, maybe both did. It's everyone against me. That's what we know. But like, you wished that they had more fun with it, that they weren't taking themselves so seriously. And I can't totally agree with that. Like, it's the thing is that's uneven. There are sections of the movie that are dead serious, but then there's the whole segment with Dennis Hopper's eye, and that was just a whole gag. It's just like, does it look good? Does it look good? You know, that whole thing. Like, it's just jokes, and like that's the kind of jokes that you would expect in the kind of movie you wanted from this. You know, there's silly stuff everywhere.
And maybe it's just how fucking dour Kevin Costner is all the time.
That's it. It's Costner.
Well, it might be Costner.
Because Dennis Hopper is having the time of his life. Like, he did not take a single moment of this seriously. Like, he's in
the right movie.
Yeah.
So maybe it is Costner.
I think it's Costner. I think like he's making a different movie. He's making his, he's a samurai. He's making
The Postman on water.
Yes, he's making The Bodyguard on water. He's making Tin Cup on water.
Tin Cup on.
He's making Draft
Come on,
Day
guys.
on
Guys,
water. Come on. It's Tin Cup. No one refers to Tin Cup.
His best work. Sure.
But yeah, like if you, I'm loath
I think
to
you might
say
be
it,
onto
but
something there.
If you swap out Costner with, Chris Pratt,
the movie probably gets closer to the tone that it should have been.
And it's just that. And it might be way more fun for you,
Or someone else that's not Chris Pratt. He doesn't need to
Aquafina.
I mean,
yes, this is with Aquafina.
I'm just picking the two people that are in everything.
Yeah. He gets enough work. We can all take a break.
Who do you swap out for Costner?
In 95 or now?
Both. I want one of each.
I mean, right now, look, I'm gonna go with Chris Pine. It's the most fun choice. Like, it'd be the weirdest. Fun. Yeah.
Kumail Nanjiani.
Yeah. Okay, I'm with you because of Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a fun pine.
Also,
That's a
I
fun
know I
pine.
want Aquafina in the movie just for the posters.
Just for the fun.
Aquafina in Waterworld, where they just do the series of one-shot posters.
Yeah, 100%. Like that's
Yes.
yeah.
But yeah. How about Jeanne Tripplehorn? How'd you feel about her in the movie?
I like Jeanne Tripplehorn.
Yeah.
No, big fan of Jeanne Tripplehorn. Like, and I think she gave a good performance because I mean, even in the fun version of this movie, her character doesn't get to be fun, nor should be fun, because she's the one burdened with responsibility. And so I think, like, you know, I enjoyed her a lot. Like, big fan of hers.
Yeah. In fact, you know, if you took the exact same movie, didn't change anything, but shifted the focus to her character, we start with her and how life is aboard the atoll. Is that what they call it?
Yeah.
And she's got this kid she's trying to protect or whatever. And then, you know, a stranger wanders in and she thinks like, this might be our ticket out of here. That might be a way better movie without changing a thing.
No,
because that pushes Costner to the back a little bit.
Does the movie then start with her peeing into a cup and drinking it?
Obviously, but do I have to spell it? Yes, clearly.
But no, I do sincerely like that because it's also the thing with the Mariner. Again, he's not even really called the Mariner like in the movie. He's a man with no name and no background. So why start the movie following him instead of establishing the community and have him roll into it as a bulldozer who's upending everything?
Who has all the dirt? And then it's like, well, wait, where'd he get the dirt?
Right.
Maybe he knows where dry land is. Dry land is a myth.
No, I think if she was going around like pleading her case, if we've got to go find dry land and everyone is just not listening to her, and then he rolls into town, like, yeah, I think that's already a better start to the movie 100%. So
you're saying that Kevin Costner is the anchor that weighs down Waterworld.
I guess I am saying that. I do have the biggest silver lining of this movie that I've been saving, which is not this movie at all, but it's the fact that this movie inspired true greatness, which is, as most people know, the Waterworld stunt show at Universal. The actual great Waterworld that has endured.
That's still running.
Is that still running? No.
I think
it's
it
still
is.
Going?
I believe it is.
I don't think that's going over at ours, but like in California, it's still going.
But like,
I think so.
But here,
dry land is my destiny. Hey, Deacon. Hey, what? No, no. Helen, and you. I'm taking you with me. Yeah.
Yeah. How good is that?
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's great.
That's
amazing.
That makes it all worth it. Also, I love stunt shows at theme parks.
Oh, yeah.
And weirdly, to tie it all together, when I was a kid, the Indiana Jones one, I remember seeing.
That's a great one. I remember that
one. It is a great one. At MGM, in Disney Hollywood Studios now, but MGM at the time. Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah. So look, we got that. Someone did make truly great art out of Waterworld already, and you can see it still at Universal.
It's kind of fun because when you come up with an idea, something like strikes you and you're like, oh, that's a kind of a cool concept. But sometimes you don't know what's the ultimate expression of that concept. Like, should this be a short? Should it be a feature? Should it be live action? Should it be animated? A game? Whatever. The ultimate expression of this concept is the stunt show.
And we have it.
Stunt show. We did it. We win. Everyone wins.
Also, from what I could see, I think it did kind of take your idea and it focused a lot more on the female protagonist in the stunt show. She's a lot more heavily involved because, again, I don't even think the Mariner, maybe he doesn't talk.
He doesn't talk. So
the stunt show.
And the most impressive thing is that Costner does every single performance of the stunt show.
Yeah.
Which,
yeah.
I mean, the way that he schedules that around Yellowstone is really impressive. The fact that he's back and forth doing both.
The man's a pro, and he's been doing this a long time. You don't stay in Hollywood as long as he has without learning how to schedule.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, we did it.
We definitely did it.
We did Waterworld. Davenport, you brought us Waterworld. We checked it off the list, like one of the pillars of bad movies.
Of maligned movies.
Yeah.
I'm so happy to have helped with that. We've got to do another one that I genuinely hate, because I was watching this going like, I don't have anything to say. I'm really enjoying myself.
What do you
This
genuinely
feels like-
hate? What's out there?
Gotta find something. Oh, have you guys seen If?
No.
No.
No. Is it bad? Are we going to have you back in January to watch If? Is that what you're telling us?
Give it a look.
Okay.
See what you think.
All right. That's a good, when we do our year-end wrap, in January, maybe we'll just have to have you back.
At one point, I think 3/4 of the way through the movie, I mentally just threw my hands up and went, I give up. I give up. I can't make this make sense in my head.
It does seem like there should be rules, right? Because it's imaginary friends.
We'll talk.
Okay. All right. I'm excited for it, but I'm also excited for this part, which is the part where you tell everyone all of the things that you do, which are incredibly impressive and varied. And please tell people where and how to find you.
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm not doing as much right now, which was nice. The last time we talked, I was incredibly busy, but Bridges is out. You can find it on YouTube.
It's phenomenal. You should go watch it.
Oh, thank you very much. So we're super proud of that. Got a couple of met some really cool people from it. It was really great. We went to the NAACP Image Awards. We got nominated for that. That was really fun. We got to be in a private show with Ludacris. That was nuts.
What?
He was playing the after party at the Image Awards. It was literally Ludacris. Yeah, very strange. So that's cool. My feature F+ is at the Cannes Film Market now, looking for a buyer. So I hope someone picks it up. That would be amazing. Other than that, I'm back to gear design, baby. So you can find me at Davenport on Instagram.
Somewhere right now, you and your team and Coppola's team are out like chasing down the same
shopping their dream project.
The sad part is it's a toss-up. So which one will actually get purchased?
I mean, yeah.
And I think that the 2026, we'll say 2026 at this, or 2025 at this point, the 2025 version of Barbenheimer is Megalop F+.
Also, I think it's time to give you credit that you did put $100 million of your own money into this film, F+. You sold one of your vineyards and you really believed in it, and I applaud you for that.
I told you that in confidence, but yeah, it's out there now. So yeah, yes, that's it. That's why I'm working at Lowe's now.
Oh man. All right. Well, we'll see you back in January, and hopefully we'll all be talking about what was it? I already forgot. No, Megalop
F+.
Megalop F+. It rolls off the tongue. That's what I love.
I'm gonna
about
try.
Megalop F+.
Silver Linings Playback is a production of HoboTrashCan.com. If you enjoyed the show, please rate or review it on Apple Podcasts. Hear more great shows on the Peak Sloth Podcast Network.